Hi guys, welcome back to Casting Commons, the show where we talk and discuss all things Pauper. I am your host, Teasdale, and this is my co-host, the Goblin Tomb Raider himself, Reese.
Hello. Good card.
It is. Very good card. I thought it was very fitting. But I probably should have saved that one for next week, to be fair, when actually Ixalan Returned, or whatever it's called, it's going to be on Magic Online, but oh well.
Caves of Ixalan, Caverns of Ixalan.
Yeah, the Lost Caverns of Ixalan, I think it's called.
That's the one.
So, Paul, what have you been up to in Magic this week?
Basically zero. So I'm gonna get some hate in the old YouTube comments. I've been on holiday essentially. I went to Ghent to see Neck Deep because we couldn't get tickets in the UK. So it seemed like a reasonable solution to just go to Europe instead of going in the UK. So yes, I've not had time to play any Magic at all. I did dip into a Belgian LGS while I was there.
Oh, cool.
That was called World's End Comics and Games, I believe, in Ghent. And that was a really, really cool store, actually.
Right.
So I definitely recommend it if anyone is in Belgium or Ghent. It's definitely worth going to. But yeah, hopefully you can carry this week Magic-wise.
Fair. Magic-wise, I've done a little bit, to be fair. I managed to actually get some time to actually start playing again. So I ran another league with the Campfire Gardens. I didn't change the list. I didn't feel comfortable changing anything really. So I got another 3-2, which was fine. Yeah, still not comfortable recording with it. It plays so weird and different to Gardens. I find that it's good to play, but it's definitely I wouldn't be able to give people directions on the best players and things like that because it is you're playing the long game. Really not my kind of strong suit.
I feel like changing the list as well at the moment is probably a bit moot because there's the Edict and the new Ica Wellspring and the new Deadly Dispute all about to come out, which probably get added to that deck in some extent. So
definitely. And that's it. It's finding a list that's kind of interesting enough, but that isn't affected by any changes that's coming out next week. So
yeah,
but yeah, it's definitely a cool take on Gardens, and I recommend anyone trying it out. I do prefer it over the Avenging Hunter lists, but I don't really like Avenging Hunter anyways, so it kind of doesn't take much. Other than that, I wrote an article, obviously reviewing the commons in the Lost Caverns of Ixalan that came live today, I think. Was it? Yeah, so some really sweet cards in there for sure.
I seen was your top 5 video this week as
well?
Yeah,
top 5 as well.
Seen that was a good watch.
Yeah, one colour definitely won out on that, like definitely. But yeah, I thought a couple of the cards were interesting and worth talking about that probably aren't on a lot of people's radar.
Yeah.
Which is quite nice. It's always, and they're the kind of gems that I kind of at least try and, they might not necessarily get there by any stretch of anyone's imagination, but they're definitely cards I always like to keep these sort of cards in like people's back pockets if meta games might change and they could easily find slots there here and there. So yeah, I definitely recommend just check it out, even if I do say so myself. Both the top 5 and the article are a lot of hard graft went into those, honest.
Figuring out actual cards that are playable.
Yes.
I think to be fair, it's quite refreshing that between Eldraine and Ixalan, there's like not just stacks and stacks and stacks of playable commons like there was in Lord of the Rings and the Commander Masters set.
Yeah.
It's more like there's 2 to 3 that are really good and probably going to see play, and then there's like 3 to 5 that are like fringe, might see play, might not, which is a lot more manageable, I think, than just stacks and stacks of auto includes, changes decks, warps, formats.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely true. They did for some reason decide to make Goblin Guide a common, but you know, here we are. But that's by the by.
It's gonna be my bag next week.
But yeah, that's pretty much all I've done. I've got I'm looking at another article obviously next week, probably on a deck of choice that I think is going to change a lot. I don't know what that is yet. I've got like a few. Mardu Sin's probably winning out at the minute. I think that gets a lot of new stuff that
I think
Makes it a bit
that's
more interesting.
probably one that's the most interesting because it gets a lot of tools that probably change how it's built quite a lot as well.
Definitely.
Whereas the other decks like Gardens, I guess, and like Affinity and Mono Red to an extent, the cards all just slot into slots that are already there realistically.
Definitely. I wouldn't be surprised if someone revisited Mono Black Devotion as well.
Mm.
Which,
I suppose, to be fair, the Edict's actually pretty sick there, right?
yeah.
It's your removal spell now adds to your Devotion.
Yep. And your Wellspring as well. There's a
And
Wellspring
you
that
can
adds black drops.
fuse it or whatever it is into a wink on
Craft.
late game.
Craft it.
Craft. Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool actually. Yeah. I never thought about that.
And it did get a revisit this week in challenges as well, but we will discuss that later. But yeah, that's pretty much all I've been up to. A couple of interesting things as well next week. Would you like to move on to some news?
Yeah, go for it.
So tournament news. It's not really my bag, it's more Reese's bag, but 10th of December, there is Recollect in Chester are hosting a £250 prize pool pauper event. Recollect have obviously always been good to us up in the Northwest for West Coast gamers. They've come to all of our larger events. They've brought a stall and stand and things like that, and it's always great. So we are obviously honoured to obviously support them here and advertise this. So please, we will add the link in the description of this YouTube or Spotify page, and you can check that out. Yeah. And Reese himself has already sorted himself out. He's attending. Whoop, whoop, whoop. I am otherwise engaged.
Maybe.
Most likely.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Definitely at this point. The just age of said child will be unknown. Yeah. But yeah. So yeah, it's definitely a cool one. I'm obviously sad to miss it out because Recollect are obviously great and their store looks fantastic. So you will have to send me some photos to put on the Good Old Casting Commons Twitter page.
Yeah, definitely.
But other than that, check it out. Really recommend it. And sad I'm going to miss it. The next news, I guess, to mention is, just for those that don't know, the Lost Caverns of Ixalan will be released 17th of November. Is when they're live in paper and released on Magic Online and Arena. Not that matters. On the 14th of November. So that is also, for those that don't know, is right on time. It's the release date is the start date of Paupergeddon. So these cards will be legal in Paupergeddon.
Oh, that'd be pretty interesting.
Interestingly enough, it is the same thing that happened with Lord of the Rings as well. That weekend is the day from the previous. So
I suppose at least with the pre-release being a week earlier, there'll be opportunity to grab those and play with them a bit in paper.
I'd like to think some of the vendors will hopefully grab some and open some stuff as they're going along. But it'd be interesting to see if anyone plays Tomb Raider or, the Edict artifact or whatever and has it in a deck. It'd be pretty cool to see because it was nice to see, obviously, Lembas making its way into the Paupergeddon event when Lord of the Rings was out, and it's nice to see, obviously, new cards just breaking the way in a nice sort of way.
Yeah, it's a shame it's not a couple weeks later Paupergeddon because you would probably see a lot more impact then because people would be able to figure the cards out a bit more. Yeah. But yeah, it will. At least they are legal, so we can see some sort of movement with them and some sort of use of them, hopefully.
Yeah, I always do like it when it is close but not too far away. I know it sounds like, I'd say maybe a week would have probably been good because to me that always gave me like Pro Tour vibes when people kept like the secret tech secret and it's like, what are they running? And then it's like, oh my god, this is the breakout deck, and it just adds excitement to it.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I think effectively having the 14th, 15th, and 16th as your testing days is a bit shy, especially if you're just going to play on Magic Online.
Yeah.
But anyways, so that is it for the news this week. If you would like to move on to the Saturday, the 4th of November challenge, sound good?
Yes. So first place we have a Blue-Black Fate, repping again. Second place, Colgate. Third and fourth, 2 Mono Blue Terrors. And then 5th through 8th, there was a Breathless Gate, which is a Breathless Knight sort of engine gate deck. Mono Blue Terror, Grixis Affinity, and another Mono Blue Terror. And then the two near misses in 9th was Blue Black Fair, and in 10th was a second Grixis Affinity. So yeah, obviously Terror returning in a pretty big fashion, taking up 50% of the top 8 essentially with just Mono Blue Terror. We've obviously said for a few weeks now that we expect that Terror will bounce back, and it does seem to have bounced back, especially in this top 8.
It was the most played deck in the whole challenge as well. Double the number of pilots as second place. 12 pilots for Mono Blue Terror, and then 6 pilots for Fair with the top 2 decks.
That's pretty big. Another very blue dominated top 10 at least, but I think challenge in general as well. Mono Red's just like super down at the moment, as well as like the Avenging Hunter decks like Ponza and Avenging Hunter Gardens are pretty low as well, which leaves obviously Terra, Colgate, and Mer Enforcer decks, which are sort of starting to skew to Grixis again. There is still Blue-White Glitters. There is still Blue-White Glitters doing well. But yeah, Grixis Affinity showing it's still got the power to just compete with all these, especially with all these control and blue decks.
Yeah, I think it's great now that once they've figured out basically what was bad in their lists, because obviously they're like traditional kind of 4 Galv Blast, a standard Grixis Affinity list of previous. Once they've figured out where things are weak and they've changed that to suit, it just really does work out well. Like obviously Baco top 8 this challenge with Grixis Affinity with like 3 Crackland Shamans in the main.
And obviously Galblast completely gone pretty much from every version of Grixis Affinity you look at now. It's just not it at the moment. You need the hard removal like the cast downs to be able to fight with these terrors.
Yeah. And it's great to see, because to me the red, looking at like Baco's list as a thing, is basically you've got 3 Crackland Shamans and a makeshift munitions, and that's the main board red. After that, you basically blue black Affinity.
Yeah, I think a big pull for the red in the sideboard is still the red blasts.
Oh, for sure.
And the pirate blasts, obviously, with how blue heavy things are at the moment. Pyroblast's like just a really big pull to have access to, and a pretty big advantage over the non-red blue decks.
Yeah, and it's basically, to be fair, with bridges anyways, it's basically free. For Affinity, you might as well. Like, you'd probably have a worse mana base going blue black Affinity, for example, or whatever. Or so, and Crackland Shaman's just busted too. My only comment is Kirby with that. What is this pile? I absolutely love this Breathless Night pile. Like, I've seen him play it before on his channel, but I didn't expect the top 8 with it. Like, Jesus.
Yeah, it's definitely a deck. You want to go into a bit more detail on it?
Yeah, we can touch on it. Basically, it's like a black-white Gates deck, which splashes a small amount of red in the sense of unearthing a scrapwork mod, I think, and that's obviously just off the multicolored gates, like the Citadel gates and the Black Dragon.
Red, if you need to,
But other than that, it's effectively like a Sacred Cat Gates deck with obviously random. I want to say random, but they look very well tuned, almost. Numbers of like random creatures, like you've got one of Crypt Rats or one of Guardians, 2 Militia Buglers, a Dawnbringer Cleric, 2 Inspiring Overseers, and then a lot of like Graveyard and small creature interaction. You've got like the Rafine's Informant, and then 3 Scrapwork Mutts, all followed up by 4 Sacred Cats, 4 Thraben Inspectors.
Yeah.
With 3 Breathless Nights in there as well.
I think to me, looking at it, it looks very... Or it has similarities to the White Weenie Gates deck that we see, was it last week?
Yeah.
Obviously with Gates, like adding an extra colour is basically free because you want to play in those cards anyway. And adding black for cast downs, especially at the moment, is really good. And then the thought of the Breathless Night package then just pretty much slides in. Like you've got the cats, and then you can just add in the nerfs and the recommissions alongside it, and it just seems to work pretty well.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think Sacred Cat works with Breathless Night either.
Oh, because it puts a token in.
Yeah. But you've got the
That makes
foreigners,
sense.
4 recommissions, and then obviously the scrapwork mutts, which
Yeah.
definitely help with it. But it's definitely a nice. Well, it's first of all, it's a fly on lifelinker, so it's reasonable anyways. Especially as soon as you put a gate on it, gaining that life swing. As everyone's seen how powerful Sacred Cat is in those gate decks, it adds to it for sure.
Yeah, I think especially at the moment as well, just being multicolored and having flying is
Mm.
such a big bonus against all the call gates.
Yeah.
Because you can in a pinch block the Guardians, you can stop them chipping away if they haven't got a gate in play.
Mm-hmm.
And I imagine it's fairly easy because it grows pretty quickly, right?
Yeah.
So I imagine it's fairly easy to outscale the gates they've got going on early and just lock them down under this
Mm.
big massive guy.
Yeah, I can definitely see that for sure. It's definitely nice. It's cool deck, and it definitely obviously worked out well for him. Top 8
Yeah.
in.
But yeah, obviously sideboard, big pulls to white is obviously Dust to Dust and Prismatic Strands. So there's the other 2 Prismatic Strands in the sideboard and 4 Dust to Dusts.
Mm.
And then just your general sort of Chain of Edicts, graveyard here with Fairy Macabres and extra Dawnbringer, and then some standard bearers and 1 extra Crypt Rats, which is I guess an interesting sideboard card,
Yeah,
given he
consider.
only has 1 in the main.
Yeah, it's also interesting of how effective this Crypt Rat is as well.
Yeah,
With
it's
the
pretty little, right?
you've got 4 Basilisk Gates and 5 planes already that
Mm.
don't tap for black. I guess maybe made up by Heap Gates. I
Even with
guess.
the 2 heat gates as well, they're sort of less anyway, because if you've got them with just black sources, they don't work.
Mm.
And then otherwise it's 2 lands to make 1 black mana rather than just 1. But
Yeah.
I guess with it at the moment, it's usually just a clear against like the mono red decks, or
Mm.
I guess in the Gates mirror, it's pretty effective to just do it for like 1 or 2.
Mm. But definitely a cool deck overall.
Mm.
Thraben Inspector, best card in Pauper.
I believe it actually did quite well on. I don't think it was Kirby playing it, but I think it did quite well on Sunday as well. I'm sure I've seen it in like
Yeah, I think it
the top
was.
16 ish.
I think it was in there, but I'm just gonna type something without. There we are. It came 26th.
Ah, there you go. So that was slightly worse than I expected, but I was sure I'd seen it. But yeah, definitely a cool one.
For sure.
And nice to see a Basilisk Gate deck not be core
Got it.
gates again. Like we had the white Wheatoney gates last week, and obviously this black white Breathless gates this week. Obviously when we first got Basilisk Gate, there was obviously all those piles of like 4-color green X gate decks, and they all sort of just died off. So nice to see some different versions of a gate deck coming back.
Yeah, and also with it being a black white as well, it had the option to obviously include Squadron Hawk in its deck, and it decides to not play this at all. So which is interesting and good to see, because as you say, it's refreshing to not see any gate piles being core.
Yeah, it's not just a Colgate shell with a different color. It's like a very different list.
For sure. And I guess the only other thing I mentioned is obviously it is nice to see that obviously Fear has cemented itself as one of the decks to beat in the meta. It's also great. As much as I have a serious disdain for Spellstutter Sprite, it is great to see.
I think the hype's definitely died down on it now. Like it's not to the extent where it was, I guess, last week and sort of the week before. But it has, yeah, like you say, it's cemented itself as a contender and as that sort of like reasonable number of each to expect each challenge rather than just I'm gonna face 20 Fear.
Yeah. What I have wrote here is there is no getting rid of the Spellstutter Sprite's menace. It is like a fly trapped in your room. Just when we had about a 6-month lull, here it comes back. But it is it's nice to see, to be fair, at the end of the day.
It's variance, it's variety.
Yeah, exactly. For sure.
Unfortunately, it's blue variety, but it's still variety.
Exactly.
Do you want to move on to the Sunday?
Yeah, can do.
Yeah, so first place was Colgate. Second place was Blue White Glitters. Third and fourth was Blue Black Terror and a second copy of Colgate's. And then fifth through eighth was Blue Black Fair, Blue White Glitters, another Blue Black Fair, and a Grixis Affinity. And the 9th and 10th was Mono Blue Terror and Grixis Affinity again. So obviously Grixis Affinity and Mirroring Forcer decks in general with Glitters, 2 copies of Glitters there, showing that they are still a top contender. They died off a bit like the past few weeks, but they're definitely coming back in force.
Mm.
And I guess my only other main comment on deck varieties, there's still no real mono red. I think there was 4 in the top 32. And none in the top 10, obviously. And Avenging Hunter decks as well were again really low.
I think that, to be fair, it kind of makes sense because the more control, I think Ponza gets a lot worse. To me, like I think it's fine, but I think overall, especially the type of control, the kind of decks that we've got, like Fair operates on a low land count. Corgate is probably like pretty good, fair enough, but Grix Affinity and all that sort of stuff, like you don't have a lot of good Ponzery kind of matchups. So that to me, like apart from Corgate, that's all you've really got. And then after that, again, as I say, Gardens is pretty down at the minute. Especially Avenging Hunter. Gardens is like, obviously they're conflicting in which lists are run and all that sort of stuff. I just think it's generally down, so makes sense to have Avenging Hunter on the lull, which I'm quite happy about. Because we all need a break.
Yeah, the initiative's not really a thing we want to see all the time.
No, definitely.
Maybe at all, but
yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I think a thing to take from both these top 8 is how just blue dominated they are, or even the top 10s. I think 9 out of the 10 decks on Saturday were blue based, and all of the decks on Sunday were blue based. They are obviously different decks. Like we still have variety, but it's just sort of a different slant from what we're used to. I've forgotten what I was going to say. Basically having every deck be blue is not really a great place to be. Obviously we've left behind the mono red dominance, and I think the meta's sort of changing to a point where Colgate, Fair, Terra, and Mirror Enforcer decks are now the top decks. I think mono red and Avenging Hunter decks have just been forced out of that pretty hard. But the sort of tide over, I guess, of that is still there, where all of these decks are still playing stacks and stacks and stacks of Hydroblast and Blue Elemental Blast in the sideboard. I think just from the 2 top 8s, there was 82 copies of blue / Hydroblasts, which, given out of the two top 32s that I've seen, there was 5 mono red decks. So out of 64 decks, there was 5 mono red decks, but 82 cards focused for those 5 decks.
I think, to be fair, it shows, looking here on the Saturday challenge spreadsheet, I don't have the Sundays, unfortunately. Burn or Red was the 3rd most played deck with 5 pilots. Obviously, that's not massive amount with only 57 people in the challenge, but
compared to what it has been, that's a tiny amount from mono red.
But it shows that it's still represented, but clearly, obviously, they're not transitioning well into top 16s and things like that.
Or top 32s.
Or top 32s. Because it's just, obviously, these Hydroblasts and things are just paying off, clearly. So, I don't know if it's...
But how much are they paying off? Like, we say that this top 8, or both top 8s, had 82 Hydroblasts. But how many of their games were against mono red? Like, if there's 5 copies in one tournament, like 1 or 2 of them are gonna play red once, maybe.
For sure, it's not like, yes, they're paying off because I'm versing it 3 rounds in a row or whatever. I understand, but it is very much, it has been hated out, and it's how much do you need to warrant this, because a lot of these, as we know, sideboards at the minute with Pauper are very, very tied up. You basically pick 3 decks and have so much sideboard cards that it's going to be, these are the decks I'm going to beat. The rest are going to be fixed in my main deck. And it might take a lull. Hopefully it does take a lull, and then we have this kind of cyclical meta where obviously Avenging Hunter and Cold Author and this sort of stuff kind of keeps rotating in and out, hopefully.
Yeah, I think that's the sort of thing that I'd expected to happen from last week, and just hasn't really. That, like, you can see Control plus Affinity decks are doing really well, but no one's really adjusting the sideboards to that. They've just still got like 5 through 8 cards against mono red.
Yeah,
and it's like, well, if you instead put 3-4 cards to mono red and shoved the extra 3 anti-control cards in there, or something that would help you in the Gates matchup, or something that would help you in the Terra matchup, you're probably going to be in a better place.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. I think, to be fair, Fairies is probably one of the few that I also think does quite well in its sideboard slots, because a lot of them, there are very much like 1s and 2s, bar like Hydras or Bebs. And I think that as a deck does generally quite well with the 1s and the 2s and leveraging those cards to beat those matchups. But other than that, I do think, like, as you say, Colgate and things like that, they really do go heavy in sideboard slots. And I do think these pilots have to probably weigh up, do I need 8 Hydras? Or will 4 be enough to get me by?
It's like the first place Colgate list, for example, had 4 Dust to Dust, 4 Pyroblasts and 2 Red Elemental Blasts, and then 4 Blue Elemental Blasts and a Hydroblast. So, like, that's essentially, like, that is the full sideboard taken up against blue decks, artifact decks, and mono red. Unless you're bringing in, like, Hydroblasts to counter their Pyroblasts, but that just doesn't sound like a good time.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting place for sideboards, especially in control metas at the minute, when there is still other options out there, as you say. Like, there's all these decks that are lower than the decks to beat. So it'd be interesting to see if they do actually think they need, these sideboard cards. Because I think Relic seems to have, to me, sort of took a downward trend, which might be the reason Mono Blue Terror is also doing
took a massive upward trend.
Yeah. It's like the old Legacy thing, when people start forgetting the graveyard hit for Dredge, and Dredge would just win 2 challenges or whatever, and then that's it. Yeah. It's like, oh, look, everyone's now got 17 Tormod scripts in the sideboard or whatever it is.
Yeah, that's sort of along the lines of what I expected. Like, I expected people to start cutting the blasts. But yeah, it just hasn't happened, strangely. I'm not sure if it's just delayed, and maybe next week it'll happen, given the basically death of mono red this week and last week. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it adapts, or if it adapts, it might just 4 Hydroblasts and 2 Blue Elemental Blasts are now a mainstay in any blue sideboard, and your sideboard's only 9 cards instead of 15.
Could it be a league experience? So if obviously people are testing these decks for challenges, and obviously leagues and challenges are very different. Yeah. I would imagine I would still expect to see 2-ish mono red decks in a league. Could that be the reason that obviously their testing is obviously
that's a possibility. I never thought about that. I haven't really played leagues in quite a while, so I'm not sure how they are faring at the minute. How was your one that you've been playing with Gardens? Did you play against a lot of red? Or?
I've versed 1 or 2. I've versed the Glitters are fair, at least 1 mono red, maybe another one, and what was there? And that was what I remember. I beat both. No, what did I do? Yeah, I must have had 1 mono red. Because I beat mono red and I beat Glitters, and then I lost to Fair, and I lost to, what else did I lose to?
But we're not at the time of 3 to 4 mono reds every league type thing then.
I wouldn't say so. I think Fair's definitely helped that, because people really like to jump on Fair.
Yeah.
So.
But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Definitely.
I imagine next week we'll have some more answers on that topic.
Yeah. Well, hopefully. Hopefully it does change, because I do think I always baffles me, obviously, having sideboard cards for sideboard cards' sake. Um, like when I used to play a lot of D&T, I seen a lot of people have like sideboard slots for Delver, and you use like fair enough, use to verse 3 Delvers in a league or in a tournament, but your matchup win rate against Delver of old was so skewed. Like, why'd you even have any sideboard slots? Like, you're
Yeah.
winning that matchup
Yeah.
anyways.
Yeah.
Stop kidding yourself. Leave the sideboard slots and put it in for something that's really bad.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't think Colgate has a horrendous mono red matchup. The deck's got Sacred Cat in the
Yeah.
main board. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It definitely depends on the variant of mono red, but yeah, you are right. It doesn't need 6 to 8
Exactly.
blasts.
It's more just like, oh well, I'm playing blue. I've got access to them. I might as
Yeah.
well. But you're gonna verse 1 in a 7-round challenge. Like, chill out.
I think that's the thing. They're just so easy to put in, like the blue blasts and the red blasts.
Yeah.
They're so just, okay, I'll bring this in against blue, or okay, I'll bring this in against red.
Mm.
Sort of the same. It's the same with Dust to Dust, where they're just like auto includes to an extent where they maybe shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Be interesting if they just banned like the 3 most played sideboard cards, and we're just like, well, let's find someone else. Sideboards would definitely be a lot more interesting.
Definitely. Like, it's like when obviously Grixis Affinity was on its, big upwards, and everyone was having 4 Dust to Dusts and 3 Revoke Existence.
Yeah.
It's like everyone's slowly realised, look, I can probably do quite well with just 4 Dust to Dusts.
Yeah.
Just change the way you play. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see if obviously we do get a sideboard change in the blue Menace. That is. It'll be nice to see. Watch them Hydroblasts go down so I can buy my 4th. Anything else would you like to mention, I guess?
No, I think that's it for me.
Sound. So we will just do some shout outs. Shout out to Carrot Eater for the win on Sunday and the second on Saturday. Nicely done.
Both with Colgates as well.
Has no soul, but definitely a great player. Congrats on the Sunday.
Good eyesight. Good eyesight though in the dark.
Yeah, definitely. Oh dear. Shouldn't it be me that's getting the dad jokes ready?
I'm just prepping you. You can have that one for free.
But yeah, congrats. Nicely done. After Baker's title, must be. My next one is obviously shout out to Kirby for the Breathless Night deck top 8. Great to see, obviously, a fellow content creator do well with especially a Wild Brew. Definitely cool. Gate piles are back.
Hopefully, because they were always quite interesting, and they give you a lot of variety. Like, if someone leads on a gate that you choose a colour for, you used to not know what colour they were going to go.
Yeah.
Whereas now they just play blue gate and name white, and you're like, oh, okay. So yeah, it is really nice to see something a bit different in the gates realm.
And I guess my last one's a bit of an overarching one because we haven't obviously done a deep dive, but I did notice there was quite a few wild brews, especially in the Saturday. So there was a Grixis Wildfire deck with Murmur Mystic, which was pretty cool. It was like literally just Monarch guys and Murmur Mystic. It was like this is a cool pile. I'm all here for this. Medvedev, you absolute insane man. Why were you on Mono Black Devotion, please? Like, wasn't even weird either. It was just stock. Like, 19th place with straight up Phyrexian Rager, Grey Merchant of Asphodel, Chittering Rats, Mono Black Devotion.
It's like old school Mono Black Devotion as well.
Yeah.
It's not even like, because it's got Cumbage, which is...
Yeah. It's like full blown. It's like Faye's doing well. I know what I'll do. Witches.
I mean, yeah.
It works, clearly.
Pretty decent against Colgate.
Yeah. With 4 Distress. I repeat, 4 Distress in the sideboard. What? What is this card? It's a 2-mana Thoughtseize. 2-mana Thoughtseize. But yeah, absolutely love it. 4 Defile, 4 Snuff Out. Wait. 4 Suffocating Fumes, sorry, not Snuff Out. No Cast Down.
It's definitely lent into killing X1s.
Yes.
Pretty hard. Obviously, the witches and the four fumes as well. I imagine for like the Colgate and the Fair matchups. But yeah, it's sweet to see Mono Black doing decently again.
Mono
I
Black
might
made
go
a
and
return.
look through all our pauper cards now and put it together.
Yeah, it's definitely cool. Mental to me that there's no cast down, but definitely
Mm.
cool. I like it. It knows what it wants to beat, and it's going to beat it. I'm surprised there's not more one drops because it's very Medvedev fashion. Is I'm going to take a deck, I'm going to make its cost half, and then I'm going to win with it. He did the same with Mono Red when he put one drops and Lotus Petal in it. He did the same with what was the other deck that he made? Oh, Bogles with Toadstool Admirer.
Yeah.
Just likes to make things cheaper.
I think to be fair, when you look at it, it is a really clean mono black
Yeah,
devotion
it is
deck
to be fair.
compared to what they used to be. Like
Yeah,
it's basically just all four ofs and then two snuff outs.
yeah.
Um, even like the mana base because it's defiled, it's just basically swamps, four witches cottage, 17 swamp, and a single Bajuka bog.
Mm.
So he's as mono black decks go, it's definitely a very clean version.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't know if that's maybe just a base to build off and then add in these new cards if they turn out to be pretty decent. But yeah, great to see.
definitely. Yeah, and then the other one to mention was a black red metalcraft in 30th. That was cool. I like it. I'm all for black red wildfire piles.
That's a pretty sort of old school one as well. Obviously, there
Yeah,
was I remember the Jund version.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, bleak coven vampires
Yes.
showing up.
Bet you never thought you'd see that in the top 32
Yeah, no,
last week.
it's definitely been a while.
Yeah, it's definitely a cool list. Definitely like it. I've ran some sort of like mostly Rakdos decks previously with this, but splashing like Fangra Marauder and things. But this has 0 green cards, just the green bridge, green red bridge.
Yeah, but I suppose all this sort of variety, even though it is a bit lower down in the challenge, sort of speaks to the numbers that you were saying was on the spreadsheet. Where was it that Fair's the second most played deck, and there was 5 or 6 copies?
6, yeah.
So like that's not high at all compared to what we used to like. We were used to being what 12-13 Terra, 12-13 mono red,
Yeah,
dominating the top 2 decks. Where now we've got Terra, and then it like the drop off's massive, so you've got loads of room for like variety essentially, and brews and different decks.
yeah, definitely. It's definitely nice to see. And yeah, the only other one to mention is Carves. On Sunday, he was on a blue-black Murmur and Mystic deck again, fully blue-black controlled Murmur and Mystic. No the real win cons by like Monarch and stuff. Definitely nice. Sweet to see the variety. We may have to bring the deep dive back.
Yeah. I think if we are seeing this sort of mix next week, it's definitely worth bringing back. Obviously, we went into the Breathless Night deck a bit and Medvedev's mono black, but yeah, I think it's definitely worthwhile.
Would you like to move on to hot takes from last week? I would rather not, but here we are.
Yeah, you're not shouting out Hyson.
Oh, have I missed Hyson?
Repping the PFP.
Oh, sorry, Hyson. I do
21st.
apologise. Do apologise.
I think he was playing
Boros, wasn't he?
A variation of Boros.
Oh yeah, he was on the Boros synth with the main deck relics, wasn't he? Yeah. 3-3 as well. Got 21st place, I think. Wow.
Yeah, so still repping.
Still repping, still playing. Man's a machine.
But yeah, hot takes from last week.
Yeah.
So my first one was that Pauper is healing, and we'll continue to see a boost in archetype variants of variety. I keep saying variants, not the same thing. Variety next week, and it definitely seems to have gone that way. Obviously, further down the top 32 you go, the better it looks.
Yeah.
The top is there is variety there. It's all very blue.
Yes.
But it is better than what we've been used to. So it is definitely nice to see.
Oh, for sure. Definitely. My hot take was Campfire Gardens will top 8 next week. It's not the case. Gardens is on a downtrend, clearly. There was only one that I seen in the top 32 on Saturday, which was like it was James Truffaz, I think, on his traditional Avenger Hunter list. Yeah. But other than that, Big sad.
Yeah, it is definitely on a big downer compared to what it has been. I'm not sure how much that'll change when these new cards come out. Obviously, a lot of them look like they have big potential in gardens, but if sort of that just the if its plan is just not very good at the moment, I don't see how more cards that stick to that plan will really help it out very much.
Makes sense.
My second one was that the meta will skew against control now that Corgate and Blue Black Phase established themselves as the deck to beat. They're definitely still the decks to beat. It's not massively skewed against control yet. I think the sort of rise of Grixis affinity is probably a bit of a pointer to it is gone that way because that deck can just outgrind all the control decks. And sort of the return of Terra as well. Especially the mono blue that we've seen on Saturday, it can sort of go fast enough and go big enough that it just beats control to the punch. So sort of not yet, but you can definitely see it is happening.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. I'm just changing
adding
my
your hot takes next week.
I'm just changing one. I've just thought something, just light bulb moment. So my last one was obviously combo decks will make a hard return next week, and yeah, it didn't happen at all. No combo at all, really.
No, I didn't really see any. Obviously, there's Breathless Night, which is sort of I guess it's not really a combo. It's more like a synergy deck, like Reanimator type thing. But obviously the Gates engine makes it more mid rangey anyway. But yeah, actual combo decks. Yeah, I don't think I've seen any in either top 32, to be honest.
We'd like to move on to hot takes for next week.
Yes. My first one is, I don't know if an easy hot take.
I'd say it's fair. I'd say it's easy.
Hot take. You reckon?
Yeah.
So my first one is that a non-blue deck will top 8 next week. Obviously we've just had 2 top 8s there, and there was 1.
I think it's easy.
So yeah, well, hopefully it'll be easy. I'll be pleased if it's an easy one.
Hopefully your first one and my first one if my first one comes true, then you've basically got your free one anyways.
Yeah.
So my next one is that Boros Synth will top 4 one of the challenges next week. I do think the deck's reasonably positioned. It does have an issue-ish with Fae, obviously having a lot of cheap cards and Spellstutter Sprite being its weakness, but it can really outgrind a lot of these control decks. Similar to Grixis Affinity in the sense that obviously the Synth and the Skyfisher package.
I guess the only problem I see with that is if Terra is on the rise. Like, it's a deck that seems to really struggle with killing Terras because none of its cards really trade very well for Terra.
No, definitely. I think that's why they end up on like 4 or 3 main deck relics.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
it'll be interesting to see. Obviously, there are some Boros Sims scattered throughout the top 32s. Yeah. My second one is sort of one we've talked about, that Hydro and Blue Blast numbers in top 8s will trend downwards. I think we've averaged between 5 and 6 per deck throughout like the top 8s for the last like few weeks. Which, especially when non-blue decks are top 8, is a lot of Hydro Blast. But yeah, hopefully it'll come down to make room. They can make room for more control beating and terror beating tools, and the red decks can come up to like a playable level. Like, I get everyone's sick of Swift Spear, but if it's at a reasonable level, like, it's not the worst thing.
No, I agree. Everything in moderation is always good.
Yeah.
My last take is that I think Blue Black Terror will be the top Terror deck next week. So this is the one that I've changed, but basically I think obviously, I think being able to answer or have a different coloured threat like the Gurmag Angler and things like that makes the Blue Black Fae matchup a lot easier. Not being able to snuff out the threat and Also with the other kind of blue-based decks in the top 8, I think having access to Snuff Out is also reasonable against like blue-white glitters and things like that, that you can really utilize the second colour, basically.
Yeah, I can see that. Even against the sort of the mono blue terror matchup, obviously Snuff Out's a great ad. Yeah, we did obviously see him on Sunday that top forward.
Yeah.
But I think that's the only. Yeah, there was none on Saturday either. So yeah, I could see that.
So that's where I'm going with it. Would you like to add anything?
It's better than the take you deleted.
I can't even remember what I did delete. Something about top 16.
A wildfire deck.
Oh yeah, wildfire deck. Yeah. Hey, we had a few brews that were wildfire decks. So
yeah.
That's what I was going for. And there's always Jeskai Ephemerate you can always rely on to at least squeeze in the top 8. So yeah. But anyways, would you like to add anything else apart from insulting my hot takes?
No, I'm fine.
No. Are you finished with insulting my hot takes as well?
Yeah.
All right, that's all right then. So, thank you guys for listening. It has been another great and another varied episode, and we've obviously got some new things on the horizon, and including the Pauper event in the UK in Chester, which obviously, don't forget, that will be in the description below. But thank you guys for listening. If you would like to share this amazing podcast with your friends, your family, your other local Pauper community, it would be greatly appreciated. And yeah, that is all from us at Cast and Commons. Until next time, don't forget to stay hydrated.
Bye.